Questions at a Senate hearing rooted in science have critics smearing Senator Rand Paul as transphobic. Well, tonight, he's here and he'll respond. And as he struggles with the English language, Joe Biden tries out French. Raymond Arroyo tells us how that went in Friday Follies. But first, locking down the next election. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, under increasing pressure to justify the obscene and ongoing lockdown of the U.S. Capitol grounds, Democrats tried to paper it over this week with vague warnings about terrible things that could happen at the hands of terrible people. Well, people who support Trump, of course. The acting Capitol Police chief, in a pathetic attempt to shift blame from their inadequate preparation, claimed yesterday to have been briefed about troubling intelligence reports.
Members of the militia groups that were present on January 6th have stated their desires that they want to blow up the Capitol and kill as many members as possible with a direct nexus to the State of the Union. We think that it's prudent that Capitol Police maintain its enhanced and robust security posture until we address those vulnerabilities going forward.
Translation: agencies want billions of dollars, your money, to keep government inaccessible to the people who actually pay the bills. Now, you can bet, right, this is going to include systems and surveillance to monitor, track, and harass law-abiding Americans. Now, as for their threat assessments, there's no reason those should not be made public now. We want to see them. Threats against the Capitol, against members of Congress, cabinet secretaries, they're nothing new. They've been around since I worked in government. But by their amorphous reasoning, all of Washington should, from now on, just be a military encampment where no citizen is allowed to go without special papers, special vetting, special permission. But we all know this is a charade. While Democrats insist on serious fencing and barricades around their place of work, they're throwing open our southern border. So any migrant, any criminal, or frankly any terrorist who wants to illegally cross the southern border can essentially waltz right in now. But any American who just wants to bring their family to visit the Capitol or speak with his representative is treated like a terrorist. I was thinking today that the continued lockdown of Capitol Hill is kind of like the COVID lockdowns with the moving goalposts, lack of any real metrics, and vague warnings about potential danger down the road. Last spring, Doctors Birx and Fauci's tedious refrain was 15 days to slow the curve. But now it's basically, we can't open until the virus is vanquished everywhere in the world. See the change? Now, Pelosi and Schumer are doing the same thing here by keeping the fear of January 6th alive to solidify their grip on power. They're getting a big boost as well from the bootlickers and the media.
The Republican Party can no longer say that they don't agree with the insurrectionists, with the bigots, with the racists, with the white supremacists.
White extremist groups, domestic terrorists.
Domestic violent extremist groups.
True conspiracy theorists and kooks and extremists.
By the way, they're talking about you. Any conservative falls into that category where they're concerned. Now, last month, weren't we told that 26,000 National Guard troops were needed just kind of temporarily to keep Biden's inauguration safe? Well, now they're going to stay until all vulnerabilities are addressed going forward, as the acting chief of U.S. Police, Capitol Police said. The truth is, the barricades and the troops won't be removed from Washington, D.C. until Democrats are voted out of office. But you can't say that the angle didn't warn you. I worry that these gates and cement barriers and 12-foot fences will never go away. That's just going to be the, quote, new normal. Anytime you hear Democrats and their allies citing online chatter to justify taking away your freedom and spending your money, your spidey senses should begin to kick in at this point. Even the Washington Post has been forced to concede that troubling online conversation often fails to materialize into a tangible threat. In the run-up to Biden's inauguration, for example, the FBI privately warned law enforcement agencies that far-right extremists had discussed posing as National Guard members in Washington. Officials took aggressive measures to secure the Capitol, and ultimately, the day passed without incident. All right. Occasionally, the truth comes out of the Post. Now, again, if the Democrats really cared about our security, really cared about it, they would not be trying to dismantle ICE and pause deportations for months on end. But what's really galling is that the very people who didn't read or act on the intel leading up to January 6th now want to interpret it for us.
We know that the insurrectionists that attacked the Capitol weren't only interested in attacking members of Congress and officers. They wanted to send a symbolic message to the nation as to who was in charge of that legislative process.
Well, there's a symbolic message out there, all right, and it's coming from Pelosi and Schumer. Those barricades and fences, assault vehicles and troops are what you could be facing next year if you attend an anti-lockdown or, let's say, a pro-Second Amendment rally. Oh, and you'll be the next suspect in their domestic terror drama. At every opportunity from now on, the GOP members of Congress have to start asking members of the Biden administration whether they believe that China or Trump is a bigger threat to America. Is it the CCP or the GOP and its supporters that we should be worried about? But maybe, I don't know, maybe Nancy Pelosi has already answered that question.
We have a domestic terrorism challenge in this country. That's what the director of the FBI testified to the end of September. Domestic violence taking more lives than international violence in this country.
And the logical follow-on to that, if the biggest terror problems are all here in the United States, why do we need so many troops in the Middle East? And that's the angle.